The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the Command Post Live. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. Training Camp Confidential. Tons to get to. Burgundy and Gold. Intrasquad Scrimmage was today. Lots to take away from that scrimmage. We're going to look at it from all angles. We've got so many different people talking about this scrimmage, what they witnessed. And so I'm going to pull as many different quotes and different things that were said about the action from today. We're going to go through DQ's press conference. Honestly, it's probably best if we go through his presser first. Then it'll kind of lead us into the scrimmage itself. And we can talk about all the things that came from the scrimmage, including Terry McLaurin being at his very first practice of training camp this summer. We've seen him come out, address the crowd, sign autographs after practice. We've never actually seen Terry McLaurin be present during practice, watching the action take place on the field. Everybody was out there, even the guys that are injured right now, nursing injuries, were out there to take in practice. Hadn't seen Marcus Mariota out there, or at least people that had been there hadn't seen Marcus Mariota in a while. He was out there. Sam Cosmi, who was usually on the side field working, was watching practice today. Terry McLaurin was watching practice today. Everybody and their mamas was out there watching practice basically today because of the scrimmage and the nature of the practice. So we'll get into all of that. Talk about the Terry McLaurin angle. He was out there, a couple of shots of him. One, the one that got the most run today, him talking with with Adam Peters. And what I wouldn't give to be a fly on top of Terry's hat, hoodie, or on top of Adam Peters's hat, just listening to what was being said there. I would imagine that I don't think it was anything serious. I think it was small talk. It's not like he hasn't been here and this was the first day Terry pulled up and they just started talking. I'm pretty sure he's seen Terry around the facility before. And I'm not saying that they had full-fledged conversations. It might have just been, hey, how you doing? But they know the cameras are watching. They know people are out there with their phones. So clearly it wasn't a ton that was said, right? It wasn't anything that they wanted to keep necessarily private. If so, then, you cover your mouth, you make sure that you don't have that conversation in the public eye, et cetera, et cetera. But what we do here is we draw inferences. What people on social media do, they start coming up with hypotheses as to what they think this could mean. Is a deal getting done? We'll talk about all of that stuff tonight. Obviously, we have no concrete answers to any of it, but we will do what we do best, and that is speculate, draw inferences, and assume, which we know nothing. But that's the fun part, right? So we'll get to all of that. But Rio did an excellent interview with Lonnell Willingham. If you haven't, checked that out, do yourself a favor and check that out. I'm going to give you some of the big parts of what I felt like he said and give you some of that information, and you can do with it whatever you like. I know some of you are not the biggest Lonnell Willingham fans. I get that as well. He says some pretty wild shit sometimes. And he talked about that with Rio. He talked about the whole Laramie Tunsil situation with Rio. I'm not going to go over all of that. If you want to see and hear about that, you got to go and watch it on Rio's channel. But I'll give you some of the things that he did say that I found interesting that we can chop it up and talk about here on this channel tonight. So you're going to get some of what Lonnell said. You're going to get some of, the rundown of what happened at the practice. You're going to get it from, this person's perspective, that person's perspective. We're going to mesh it all together. And then we're going to start coming up with some real conversations, because I got some real conversations about some of the things that are transpiring. And I think, some of this stuff needs to be said. So we're going to have some of those conversations as well tonight. So Without any further ado, let's go ahead. We're going to start with DQ and his press conference, which kicked off the event today, which DQ has a press conference before every practice, not just today's scrimmage. But he started out by giving out the details of the scrimmage, how things were going to go. Basically, it was going to feel like a joint practice, but within the same squad. They broke the team up into 2 squads: Burgundy squad, Gold squad. And remember, I was saying, man, I would love to know who is on what team. Well, we have that information now, so we can go over that as well, and we will. He talked about them getting into some situational football. They were primarily focusing on the second and the fourth quarter. So second quarter leading into halftime, fourth quarter, end of game situations. That's what they really wanted to focus on. They had an official because DQ said that the 15 penalties on Friday night versus the Patriots was unacceptable. So they wanted an official, or wanted officials out there, enforcing infractions so that there are penalties for guys out there making mistakes. You can't just be holding dudes and getting away with it. There's an official there to flag you for pass interference, for illegal contact, or for holding. You're going to be penalized for the mistakes that are being made. If you line up illegally in a formation, somebody's on the ball that should be off the ball, vice versa, we're going to flag you for that. We got to clean up the mistakes. So he was adamant about having officials on site for this one, and they were. He talked about the coaching staffs being split up. So we got all the information about the staff. We found out that the 2 coordinators, Joe Witt Jr. on the defensive side and Cliff Kingsbury on the offensive side, are going to be the head coaches of those 2 teams. And so DQ was stepping back, allowing his coordinators to be the head coaches of these teams. And he took 2 assistants from each side of the ball and made them play callers. So on the offensive side, it was Tavita Pritchard and Brian Johnson. Tavita Pritchard, as you know, quarterbacks coach, Brian Johnson, offensive pass game coordinator. And then on the defensive side, it was Jason Simmons and it was Tommy Donatel. Jason Simmons, defensive pass game coordinator, Tommy Donatel, defensive backs coach. So those were your 2 play calls. So in effect, Tommy Donatel and Jason Simmons were your defensive coordinators, and for the 2 teams, right? 1 for each team. And on the offensive side, Brian Johnson was an offensive coordinator and Tavita Pritchard was the other offensive coordinator. So I thought that was pretty cool as well. So he went through all of that to start his press conference, talked about how jacked he was for this, and then he jumped into the questions. He also said before he took questions, 9 players were going to be out of this scrimmage: 2 offensive linemen, 2 wide receivers, 1 quarterback, 1 linebacker, 1 edge rusher, 2 corners. So I'm trying to remember this off the top of the dome. The 2 offensive linemen were Brandon Coleman and Sam Cosmi, obviously. The 2 receivers were Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown. The 1 quarterback was Marcus Mariota. The 1 linebacker, Jordan McGee. The 1 edge rusher was Javonte John Baptiste. And the 2 cornerbacks, Jonathan Jones, who we got to talk about in a second because he just entered the injury report. Like, remember, he didn't play in the scrimmage or the preseason tilt versus New England. And I thought it was just, they're giving a 9-year vet some rest. I thought he should have been out there. And the last time we actually seen him on the field was a joint practice. We haven't seen him since. So something's obviously wrong. We haven't gotten any details on it, but he didn't play and Bobby Price didn't play. So those are the 2 corners, right? So everybody else was eligible to be out on the field, but that doesn't mean that everyone did participate. We will get into that a little bit later. So he was first asked about Deebo Samuel. And he said that Deebo has been really impressive. First things first, above all else, he came into training camp physically in shape, and he has been mentally in shape and sharp throughout the duration of camp. He said this is a new offense for Debo after spending his entire career in San Francisco, basically in Kyle Shanahan's offense. This is a new offense for him. So this is something that he had to really work hard at, being, locked in and understanding what his role is going to be here. And he's done a fantastic job of that. But, I didn't realize that he was challenged by this staff. Cliff Kingsbury actually called him fat. When they were in OTAs and they left and they broke away from minis, and we saw those videos. We saw the videos of Debo working out with the route god and putting in that work. And it was because Cliff Kingsbury challenged him to be in shape. And he came back in tip-top shape, and he's looked good, and he's performed well. And we're going to see if he continues to do that. But DQ was like, yo, he's locked in physically. He's locked in mentally. And they really like where he is right now, right? He said that there's no Terry McLaurin update, which we already knew that, because if there were one, he would have given it to us. And so he said that there's no Terry update. And if there is one, he'll give it. He did comment, though, on if there's a level of concern for the Terry situation. And he did say that there is, he didn't say that there's concern, but he insinuated that as a coach, you want all of your players out there, obviously. And, he loves that Terry's there in the building, but you want your players on the field. And there is no doubt that Terry's absence, Noah Brown's absence, I always make sure I bring both of them up, because as much as we talk Terry, Noah Brown being injured hurts this offense as well. And the combination of the two not being out there together has created this void at the receiver position that we talk about constantly, because it's just not good enough. And we're going to highlight the issue with those two being out here in a second, when I tell you who were, if you don't already know, which some of you probably already know, who the starting receivers were for the gold team in this game, or the burgundy team, excuse me, with Jaden Daniels and company. So he did kind of insinuate that, yeah, there is a bit of concern here, honestly. But, you can only do what you can do. You got to control what you can control. And I got to make sure that I'm present for the guys that are on the field. And I got to make sure I coach those guys up and get them ready. And he did say that, because you try to find, if you're a positive person, if you're a glass half full person, DQ strikes me as a guy that is glass half full. He's a very optimistic guy. And so when you're an optimist, what you often do is you try to find the silver lining in things. You try to find the positive in a negative situation. And he's talked ad nauseum about the positive of Terry not being out there is guys getting opportunities, Debo getting more time on task with Jaden and kind of speeding up that process. Something else he said is, being a coach, part of being a coach is having to deal with adverse situations on the fly and figuring out solutions to them. And he said, not having Noah Brown, not having Terry McLaurin has put them in a position where they've got to figure it out on the fly with the stuff that they have. And if this would happen in season, they'd be better prepared for it. I'm not saying that it's going to be good, because it hasn't been good all camp. Now, with that said, they're not game planning specifically for a team and things of that nature. And so there's ways to circumvent that. But at the end of the day, this is not an ideal situation. And he acknowledged that. And I know he's dying to get Terry back out on the field. He talked about Joe Witt Jr. and the prospects of him being a head coach, and the qualities and the traits that make him a viable candidate. And he talked about his identity, right? His ability to be detailed. I think that's something that DQ really is strong at. I think that's one of DQ's superpowers, is just being extremely detail oriented. And I remember Joe Witt Jr. last year talking about a meeting he had with one of the coaches that on a staff that he was on, and him having detailed notes and going back to those notes like from 3 years ago to use that in a situation that was going to benefit him, right? So the detail part, we know, is something that Joe Witt Jr. does not lack. And I think it also stems from him being the son of a coach. You know, watching his dad do what he did for so many years, seeing how his dad went about his business, understanding the work that goes into it. It also leads into DQ talking about Joe Witt Jr.'s ability to set expectations for his players, set a standard and a priority, you know, things that we have to do. This is priority for us. And then setting the standard and the expectation and holding them accountable. And so I see Joe Witt Jr. as another one of these Aaron Glenn type of guys that, if put in the right situation, could easily ascend to head coaching status and get an opportunity to be a head coach in this league. For the 57,922nd time this summer, DQ had to answer the Jaden Daniels improvement in year 2 question. And he basically said that the biggest thing that Jaden has grown at is making others better, which I thought he did last year, to be honest with you. I mean, thank you for making me right, Jaden. He made others better last season. Whether it was Olamide Zaccheaus, De'Ami Brown, or whomever, offensive lineman, you name it, he did it. The defense as a whole, he made everyone around him better. But this year, maybe he's vocally, you know, making guys better. But last year, he did it through his actions. DQ elaborated on splitting up the teams and what the thought process was behind that. How'd he go about figuring out who was going to be on what team? He didn't get into the minute details of what he did, but it wasn't hard to figure out. You took the starting defense and the starting offense, you put them on opposite teams so that they can go up against each other. And then you split up the rest of the roster accordingly. That's basically what was done. So we'll take a look at some of that a little bit later on, see if we can make out who went where and did what, right? So he was asked about the rookies and, you know, what makes this group unique. And he talked about this group of rookies being a much smaller group. And you just think about going back to when you were in school, or even when you played sports and the instruction that you received. It was much more detailed, much more easier to consume when you were in a much smaller group. There was much more information given to each specific person because it's not as many of you. We can go into explicit detail on things because, again, the group is a lot smaller. Only 5 guys in the actual draft class. They didn't have this robust amount of undrafteds. So it was a really relatively small class compared to last year. He said that this is a mature group. They came in prepared. He said they have their good days, their bad days, just like any other rookies. But he said this group gets it. They've put a lot on their plate. And he's been impressed by this group. I've been impressed with this group, to be honest with you. I've seen flashes from every single one of them. That includes Kane Medrano. Of the 5 guys, he's the one that feels like he's least likely to impact this team on the field in the upcoming season. Maybe he's out there on special teams. Maybe he's not. Doesn't feel like he's going to be out on the field defensively in any capacity in his rookie season, unless something goes horribly wrong. But ultimately, I've still seen things from him that make me excited about his future here on this team. I've seen more from Kane Medrano, and this is not fair to Dominique Hampton, and I don't want to kick a man while he's down. He's no longer here. But I've seen more in one preseason game from Kane Medrano than I ever did in Dominique Hampton in 4 preseason games. 3 last year and the one this past Friday. Saw more in that one game from Kane Medrano than I did from 4 games of Dominique Hampton in the preseason. So it's a really good group, I think, when it's all said and done. Learning the receivers. He talked about learning these receivers. Without Terry and Noah Brown, he said that you've gotten a long, good look at these receivers and what they can do. He said they've moved these guys around to kind of figure out where they're best suited. He mentioned 2 rookies in particular as 2 guys that they've really been kind of keeping their eye on. Obviously, Jalen Lane is one of them, the other being Ja'Cory Brooks, as guys that they really wanted to, kind of see what these guys could handle, putting as much on their plates as possible, seeing what they could digest, seeing how they would perform inside, outside, seeing the things that they could do, what routes they could run, things of that nature. And he said he's been really pleased with what he's seen from those 2 rookies in particular. Then he expounded upon the Jalen Lane thing because the question was brought to DQ about right now with Terry out, you really don't have a number 2 wide receiver. So who's that guy? With Terry and Noah out, you really don't have a number 2 receiver. Who's that guy right now? And because DQ had talked about, the prospects of a situation where you could be without those 2 guys in season, what would you do? And so the hypothetical came up, well, who would be your number 2 receiver? And he talked about guys moving around, talked about Debo being more of a slot receiver. He can play outside, and they've moved him around, but they see him as more of a slot guy. And so he talked about Jalen Lane as a number 2 option. And he said that, even with Terry back, if Noah's not out there, they still need somebody else to step up. And this is the issue, because I talked about this yesterday. I said, okay, so say Terry McLaurin comes back. You got Debo, but Noah Brown he's never been fully healthy. Even when we got him last year, he wasn't healthy. Remember, he missed the first game of the season. Noah Brown is rarely healthy. Okay. So we have to assume that we're not getting 17 games out of Noah Brown. So with that said is, if you were to have Noah Brown out of the lineup and let's say Terry's back and he's being Terry and you got Debo, who else is out there at receiver? And that's the question. Nobody has stepped up. Is it Luke McCaffrey? Is it Jalen Lane? Right now, it doesn't look like it's any of the veterans. It's not Chris Moore. It's not Michael Gallup. At least it doesn't feel like it right now. It's not Michael Strachan. It's a really tough situation, right? He talked about Jalen Lane as a number 2 receiver. I don't know about you. That's not cool. That's not cool. He talked about the thought process behind developing his coaches. Zach Ertz, a quote was given to him by Chick Hernandez where Zach Ertz basically said that DQ's a real one. And one of the best, coaches he's been around for doing what he did today with the coaching staff and putting them in charge the last 2 days and giving them those responsibilities and a little taste of what it's like to move up a notch from where they currently are. Whether you're an assistant getting an OC or DC job, you're an OC or a DC getting a head coaching job, and not that Cliff Kingsbury hasn't already experienced that before. He's been a head coach in 2 different spaces, whether you're talking college at Texas Tech or in the NFL as the Arizona Cardinals head coach. However, he's also learned a lot since having that job. And I know there's things he would do differently now. He's even said as much. So, getting that opportunity to be the head man, pretty significant, deal. And he talked about, the thought process behind doing it and why he felt like it was important. He's like, when you're a part of this program, you just think about the development of the players. But if you're here, this is a full building of development, and that extends to the coaching staff as well. When you come here, there's a unique opportunity that you're going to continue to grow in this profession and continue to be the best version of yourself. And you'll learn every single day, and you'll get opportunities to grow, so that if an opportunity does come for you to advance, you'll be ready. And he said, next year it'll be two different, position coaches getting an opportunity to be OCs and DCs, and who knows what happens, with Joe Witt Jr. and Cliff Kingsbury, the next off season, right? And while it helps for these coaches' development, it's also self-serving, because it's also giving him an opportunity to see what these guys would do if given an opportunity to be the next offensive coordinator, because we already have talked about this, and we're preparing ourselves mentally for the day that Cliff Kingsbury gets an opportunity that he sees as a good fit for himself and decides to bolt. It's coming. If this team continues to succeed, Jaden Daniels continues to play well, it's only a matter of time before Cliff Kingsbury is a head coach again. Again, had he wanted the New Orleans Saints job, he could have taken it. They offered him the job. They basically said, it's your job if you want it. And he was like, no, I'm good, which was the right thing to do, because that's a death trap. But there are more opportunities that will come, and he will have another shot to be a head coach. And so DQ is also making sure that he's prepared for when that opportunity, comes. So he's developing his coaches, but he's also getting a head start on a process that he knows he's going to have to endure at some point. Smart all the way around. I already told you who the OC and the DCs were. And then he talked about the excitement of the coaching staff. He said that when they broke away yesterday, he said the excitement level with the coaches was through the roof. He said, that's part of why I did it. He's like, that was one of the main reasons why I did it, was to see how these coaches would respond, and to see the amount of excitement that they had, the amount of juice that this created, because guys had different tasks that they had to perform, and, felt that need to get a job done, to complete a task that was very different than the ones that they normally have, and one that required them to step out of their comfort zone, take it to another level, one that they probably strive to and attain to try to be at. He said it was pretty cool watching everyone kind of take ownership of those roles that they were being placed in. So that's how he left the press conference, basically talking about how excited the coaches were. So with that said, let's get to the practice itself, because a lot took place. So the first thing I want to talk about is the gold and burgundy rosters, right? The burgundy and gold rosters. So we know about the defense being on the gold roster, the offense being on the burgundy, the starting offense being on the burgundy. So this is from Ben Standing. Gold versus burgundy rosters. The gray is special teams. The white means you're out of this scrimmage. So if we take a look at this You start at the very top. Mike Sainristil, part of the gold. Marshawn, Will Harris, Frankie Louvu, because it's all in numerical order. So, as one would imagine, a lot of these numbers from 0 to 20 are going to be defensive guys that are going to be on the gold team. And then you're going to have some offensive guys filling in that gap as well. And then a lot of the 90 numbers are going to be on the gold team as well. But Mikey Sainristil, Marshawn Lattimore, Will Harris, Frankie Louvu. I want y'all to tell me which squad sounds like it's got the advantage. So we're going to name the gold squad first. Mikey Sainristil, Marshawn Lattimore, Will Harris, Frankie Louvu, Tay Martin, Jacoby Jones, Josh Johnson. So I guess I should say the position too. Mikey corner, Marshawn Lattimore corner, Will Harris safety, Frankie Louvu linebacker, Tay Martin wide receiver, Jacoby Jones wide receiver, Josh Johnson, Sam Hartman are your two quarterbacks for the gold team. Ja'Cory Brooks wide receiver, Quan Martin safety, Kaz Allen running back. Let's see. Trey Amos, cornerback, Von Miller, edge, Demetric Felton, running back, Bill, running back, Chris Rodriguez, running back, Revo, safety, Tyler Owen, safety, Colson Yankoff, tight end, Bobby Hart, tackle, Javon Kinlaw, defensive tackle, Bobby Wagner, linebacker, Jacob Martin, edge, Kane Madrano, linebacker, Michael Dieter, center, Julian Good-Jones, guard, Tyree Phillips, guard tackle, Timothy McKay, guard, Chris Paul, guard, Foster Sorrell, tackle, Braylon Sanders, wide receiver, Mike Strachan, wide receiver, Cole Turner, Lawrence Cager, couple of tight ends on the gold team, Dietrich Wise, edge, Dorrance Armstrong, edge, Deron Payne, D tackle, Johnny Newton, D tackle, Eddie Goldman, D tackle. So that was the gold team. Their quarterback, Sam Hartman and Josh Johnson. On the burgundy squad, you have Debo Samuel, wide receiver, Jaden Daniels, quarterback, Noah Igbenogany, cornerback. You've got Brian Robinson Jr., running back, Luke McCaffrey, wide receiver, Michael Gallup, wide receiver, KJ Osborne, wide receiver, Chris Moore, wide receiver, Carlin Vigors, corner, Jeremy, what is that? Jeremy McNichols, running back, Austin Eckler, running back. You got, he just got here. Antonio Hamilton just got here the other day. Corner, Percy Butler, safety. Let's see. Is that another one that just got here the other day? I think he just got here the other day too. I can't see his name. Yeah, I don't know who number 38 is. Oh, shit, that's Jeremy Reeves, isn't it? No, he's 39. Revo's 39. Yeah, I don't know who number 38 is. Cam Arnold, linebacker, Rob Daniel, safety, Ben Nichols, safety, Andre Jones, edge, Ale Cajo, linebacker, Duke Riley, linebacker, Nick Ballore, linebacker, TJ Mag, edge, Tyler Biotis, center, Norrell Pollard, defensive lineman, Ricky Barber, defensive tackle, Nick Allegretti, guard, Andrew Wiley, guard, tackle, Josh Connolly Jr., tackle, Trent Scott, guard, tackle, Carl Davis, defensive tackle, Laramie Tunzel, tackle, Ben Sennett, tight end, Jalen Lane, tight end, Zach Ertz, tight end, John Bates, tight end, Jalen Holmes, defensive lineman, and Sheldon Day at defensive tackle, and Cleveland Farrell at defensive end. So that was the Burgundy team. Of those two squads, I'm gonna be honest with you. Any team with Jaden Daniels, I'm taking, but the gold squad sounds better. But you still got to remember Sam Hartman and Josh Johnson are your two quarterbacks on that squad. So I would just roll with the Burgundy squad just off the strength of Jaden Daniels being on that team. But that is not how practice went. So we continue on. So early on in practice, as things are getting kicked off, we get word that Terry's out there, and we get a bunch of pictures. And we got people taking hostage photos of Terry from 100 yards away. I think Terry was trying to be incognito, got the hoodie on, kind of just, was trying to stay out of the public eye. Fans weren't out there. But, the media be all over that shit. You ain't sneaking, out to practice, and the media ain't going to see you. And this ain't 1994. You ain't showing up out there and not having a million pictures being snapped of you and up, loaded up to social media. So as soon as they got wind that Terry was out there, every beat reporter posted a picture or reposted a picture that JP Finley, which is where this came from. And he had a video, obviously. He said Lip Reader is going to be in full force on this one. Adam Peters and Terry McLaurin talking to one another. And this conversation that JP recorded, and again, I don't know how long they were talking for. They could have been talking for a minute and a half for all we know. This clip was about roughly 15 to 20 seconds long of Terry, listening to Adam Peters, then responding to whatever Peters said. It didn't seem like it was anything major. We don't know what's being said. Obviously, he's no Jerry Jones. He's not out here trying to negotiate a contract with Terry without his agent present, right? Like, he's not trying to go back channels and get it done. I would love to know what was being said here, honestly, but I just love the fact that they're talking. At the end of the day, this could easily be on some Michael Parsons, Jerry Jones shit, where literally they're standing 5 to 7 yards apart from each other, arms folded, and not speaking to one another. Like, it could easily be on some of that type shit, and it's not. So everything here, I don't want to say it's amicable. That wouldn't be the right word to use, but I think everything here is, I think it's still salvageable. I will say that. We haven't gotten to the point of no return. I think as the days go by and we get closer to September 7th, you get closer and closer to the point of no return. But I don't think that's where we are right now. So I think that we can still salvage this situation, but something has to be done. So this post came out. It really was like, oh shit, here we go. A lot of people like, hey, we might be getting this shit done sooner rather than later. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't get that from this. This doesn't change anything. I'm just happy that there's communication between the two of them. This shit ain't like ice cold, but at the end of the day, I don't think you can take anything from this other than they was chopping it up at practice. You can do with it whatever you like. You can do whatever you like. Yeah. I just think ultimately this shit still ain't getting done until they get to a point where something has to get done. And it may just be Terry got to show up because he's still got 1 year left on his deal. And maybe they add some incentives to his deal to give him an opportunity to make some more money or something of that effect. But that doesn't change the long-term ramifications of this situation. You want Terry locked in for the foreseeable future. And if something doesn't get done, it feels like it's less and less likely to. Because again, if there was an issue with signing Terry to an extension this year, what do you think happens if he doesn't sign it this year and then you franchise tag him? And assuming that they franchise tag him, assuming that Terry has a really good season, assuming that they want him back and they franchise tag him. Now Terry would have the leverage because he doesn't have to sign the franchise tag again. He could either not sign it or not play football, but he could have that right to say, I'm not signing it. And then he doesn't even have to be in the building. He could just be away from the team because he's not technically under contract. So it could turn really ugly. None of us want to see that. I don't think any of us envisioned ourselves being here with this player in this situation, but here we are. I don't think this conversation between the two of them means anything. As far as getting a deal done, I'm just glad that they're talking and that there's communication, right? This picture to me is more telling than that picture, if we are to be honest with one another. Jaden is at practice. The Burgundy team is getting their ass whooped at this point of practice. And Terry's standing over there trying to console his guy. And look, this is me just spitballing here. You know what I do. I look at a picture, I read body language, and then I start spouting out what I think is, being said, right? This looks like Jaden saying, these niggas is trash. Like, this the same shit, bro. I just dropped one in the bucket to this rookie. He dropped the ball again. This shit is getting on my nerves. I can't take this shit no more, bro. When you getting out here, man? I gathered all of that from this picture right here. But ultimately, he looks like he's voicing his frustration with what's going on the field. This was a very frustrating day. We're about to get to that. Terry's sitting there being a sounding board. Like, man, I know, bro. I get it. Shit's crazy, man. Terry wants to be out there, but it's been rough. And I've said this already. I've said this millions of times since we've seen the struggles of this offense, heard about the struggles of this offense, watched them struggle in the preseason game, even though Jaden wasn't out there. We've heard about the struggles in the joint practice. We've heard about the struggles during practice throughout training camp. We heard about the struggles in the red zone yesterday in a light practice, and then the struggles again today in this scrimmage. It's not a coincidence. These receivers are struggling to separate. And I'll take it a step further and tell you that it's getting to the point now where, and I've said that Jaden Daniels and this team is being affected by this. But it's hurting Jaden Daniels in practice. It's hurting the team in practice. I don't want him developing bad habits because he's having to do things that he shouldn't have to do because he's playing with guys. Like, keep in mind, he played with 2 first-round pick wide receivers in college. He's never played with bums. When he was at Arizona State, he played with Ricky Pearsall and he played with Brandon Ayuk. The man has never played with trash. This is probably the worst set of receivers he's had to go into practice every day with since he's gotten out of high school. And I don't know who he played high school ball with. But the shit is bad. And I don't want him developing bad habits because he's having to try to be perfect on every single throw. Because he's throwing to guys who can't separate. Guys that don't make contested catches. And I'll take it a step further. I'm not willing to I'm not willing to give the defense the benefit of the doubt anymore and just assume, especially after. And again, I'm not. The first team defense has nothing to do with the second and third team dudes that were out there on Friday night against the New England Patriots. But I'm just not willing to give the defense the benefit of the doubt because they weren't great in the joint practice against the Patriots either. I'm not willing to give them the benefit that they just dominant out here. They continue to be dominant because they're playing against lesser competition. That's the way I view this. The offensive line is in shambles right now. It's not a great group. So when you hear that today the defensive line dominated the offensive line, that's not a surprise. New England's group dominated our first team offensive line in the joint practice. Well, okay, dominated is a strong word. The interior wasn't good against New England. The tackles were pretty solid. But the interior wasn't very good against New England's front. The interior wasn't good again today. It's not a coincidence that 2 of the 3 starters on the interior are out of the lineup. So I'm not shocked that that's a problem. Then you add to the fact that your quarterback is throwing to, and these are the guys that were starting. This is from Lonnell Willingham, who said the Burgundy team starters today out there with Jaden Daniels. Get this. Luke McCaffrey at the X. Rookie Jalen Lane at the Z. Deebo Samuel in the slot. Who the hell are you beating with that trio at wide receiver as your starters? I'll wait. So when you tell me, man, the defense dominated today, you're damn right they dominated. It's the same shit I've been saying for the last 2 weeks, basically. Like, I bet the defense is dominating. I bet the secondary looks all world. We look like we have 4 all pros out there. I bet we do. And this picture, it says 1,000 words, doesn't it? It says absolutely nothing and everything at the same damn time. I feel for my guy. I do. I feel for you. Our receivers do. I feel for him. Because outside of Deebo right now, it ain't shit out there. Pun intended. That picture told me a lot more than Terry McLaurin talking to Adam Peters. That's a quarterback frustrated right there. Like, man, I'm sick of this shit, Terry, bruh. Dudes out here can't create no separation. I'm putting it right in their damn hand. They dropping this shit. Ain't nobody coming down with contested catches. Shit, you can't create no separation. That's fine. Well, I put this shit on you and you still don't catch it. It's all good, though. Moving right along. So now let's look at this from Candy Waller's perspective, right? So we'll start from the bottom and work our way up, right? So Seawall Sports writes, Brandon Coleman and Sam Cosmi outside for the Burgundy and Gold scrimmage. So as I mentioned to you guys earlier, everybody was out for this thing, right? Like all the guys that weren't participating, DQ gave us a list of 9 guys who did not participate in this scrimmage. But normally those guys aren't even out there for practice. You know, they're inside getting treatment. You know, they're inside rehabbing. They're not outside a lot of times. You know, Sam Cosmi has been outside. He's been working on the side field, and you'll see guys doing that from time to time. But most of the time, if you're not practicing, you're not outside, right? So those 2 were out there. I told you Marcus Mariota, who also was not participating today, was out there. Told you Terry, I mean, you've seen the pictures that Terry McLaurin's out there, right? She writes, the energy is definitely up for this Burgundy and Gold scrimmage. And you know, the players are going to be excited about this. The team posted a couple of videos of them walking out excited, you know, team gold, team burgundy, whatever team you were repping, you were talking trash. You know, anybody that's competitive, this is going to get the juices flowing for sure, right? Seawall also says the gold team has a whole hype session set up. And who goes over there to see what's going on? Jaden Daniels. He's the burgundy team QB. So the gold team was getting hyped up. I leave it up to the defense to do that. That's a defensive thing. Defensive dudes get it lit all the time. Offensive guys, not so much. You know, so I know the gold team had it lit, right? So they were getting hyped up, doing their thing, and Jaden's like, what y'all doing over here, man? Blowing up their spot. I love it. Noah Brown and Bobby Price also outside for the burgundy and gold scrimmage. So again, Bobby Price in the concussion protocol. Him being outside means he's probably getting towards the latter stages of that protocol, because if he were still having sensitivity to light and things of that nature, he wouldn't be outside. But again, we talked about 9 guys not participating. 2 of them here. I told you that Marcus Mariota was out there. That's 3. Noah Brown, Bobby Price are also out there. That's 5. Javonte John Baptiste also out there watching the scrimmage per Seawall. That's 6. Terry was out there. That's 7, right? Who are we missing? Let's see. Jordan McGee is 1, and Jonathan Jones is the other. Those are the 2 guys that haven't been mentioned as being out there. I don't think I heard anybody mention that those 2 were out there. I could be wrong. They could have been out there too. Seawall continues. Gold team defense, which the first team defense, with all the energy to get this to get things going. Burgundy team defense, second team, responds quite well and forces a gold team punt. So neither team offensively got off to fast starts in this game. And just for proper context, the final score of this game was 14-0. The gold team won the scrimmage, blanked the burgundy team featuring Jaden Daniels, which is crazy to think that a team featuring Jaden Daniels didn't score a single point, but that's what he's dealing with. You couple the struggles of the receivers with the offensive line not having a great day, and then Jaden himself not having a great day. We'll get to that here in a second, which we can make all the excuses we want for him, and those excuses would be valid, but he didn't play well himself either, right? Seawall continues, the officials are here and they are throwing flags when necessary. You know, she says, you all know I'm happy to see that. Something we all saw Friday night needs to be cleaned up. A lot of flags Friday. A lot of flags. I thought some of them were bogus. The Revo, personal foul, the late hit out of bounds, they called on Ben Sinnott. I thought that was bogus. So there were a couple that I was like, come on, y'all. Seriously. But then, as I said before, a lot of times these things even themselves out. We all saw the Allen George tackle before the half on a pass defense that should have clearly been flagged for PI and put them in a position to get a field goal before halftime that they just let go. So even for every call that didn't get flagged, for every, infraction that could have been called, there were 2 or 3 that didn't get called. So it all evens itself out. Seawall continues. Terry McLaurin is outside watching the Commanders practice, which we know. She says, also yesterday, I saw Sam Cosmi working out with the trainers. I am so super impressed by his progress after an injury in January. Look, you know what I'm about to say. I'm not even going to say it. Yes, I am. All in for week 1, Sam Cosmi. All in for week 1, Sam Cosmi. Now, I will say this. I don't expect him to be ready for week 1, but I've already told you this multiple times, many times. I expect him to start this season as an active member of the roster, not a member of the PUP list, which would keep him out the first 4 weeks of the season. So I think he's going to be back sooner rather than later. Seawall then continues. Linebacker Jordan McGee was at yesterday's Commanders practice, which was a jog through, but will not play in today's burgundy and gold scrimmage. So the fact that he was out there on a jog through is good news. Doesn't mean that he's like super close to being back, but it is a sign that he's not that far away. Because if he was seriously injured and wasn't capable of going through a walkthrough, he wouldn't have been out there. So he's going to be back, I think, sooner rather than later. Same with Javonte Jean-Baptiste. And we'll talk more about that here in a second. Seawall then says, new to the Commanders injury list is Jonathan Jones, the cornerback that, and I said this one is interesting because we haven't seen him since the joint practice with the Patriots. He didn't play in Friday's preseason game. He wasn't on the field at practice on Sunday. He wasn't on the field yesterday. And again, he didn't practice in the scrimmage today. So this is the first time, though, that we learned that he was actually injured. We just thought, oh, he might be getting some vet rest days or whatever. You know, maybe he had an illness. Remember, Luke McCaffrey was sick on Friday. Maybe Jonathan Jones got it. Who knows, right? But this was the first time that we were like, wait a minute. He's not participating. Again, something's up. So DQ did not disclose the injury. We don't know. Candy then goes on to say others on the PUP list, therefore not playing in today's game. And then she went through the list of guys that DQ told us weren't playing. McLaurin, Cosme, Noah Brown, Marcus Mariota, Brandon Coleman, Jordan McGee, Bobby Price, were all of the names of the guys who weren't, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, etc. The 9 guys. This was interesting, continuing on. She says, I did not see Commander safety Tyler Owens at practice today. That's interesting because if you recall, Tyler Owens left the game against the Patriots on Friday. Really haven't heard much about him since then. You've had 2 light practices since. So he wasn't on the injury report, right? The 9 guys that missed practice today, but he didn't practice, and neither did Bill. Okay, neither did Bill. Now, if you watch Rio's interview with Lonnell Willingham, Lonnell, and we're going to get to that here in a second, Lonnell basically was like, they're just kind of keeping him in bubble wrap, him being billed. They don't want, it's just more of a precautionary thing. Could be the same thing with Tyler Owens, but those guys weren't put on the injury report. Those guys weren't out of practice today. So just a little something to think about, right? Just a little food for thought. No Tyler Owens, no Bill today to go along with the other 9 guys that didn't participate. So Seawall says, going back through my notes, Mike Sainristil was playing with Frankie Louvu energy today. Heard that from multiple spots. If you watch the Commanders YouTube channel, they had a joint practice, burgundy and gold, preview show that they did, with them stretching because they can't show the actual practice itself. So they had a show before practice started. Logan Paulson had an interview with DQ, a little quick, like 2-3 minute interview with DQ. And then they had a little like post-practice show breakdown where they kind of told us a little bit of what was going on. And Mikey Sainristil, really, they highlighted the entire secondary. Go figure, right? You know who they're playing against. But even with that said, they highlighted Mikey Sainristil and a number of guys in that secondary. But they said Mikey lit one of the receivers up. And that prompted Debo, when he got the ball, with an opportunity to lower his shoulder, and those two ended up popping pads a little bit. We know Debo he liked that, so Mikey lit somebody up early. Debo kind of got a lick back, but Mikey didn't back down. Mikey was on it today. He was on one. I'm on one. I'm on one. I'm on one. He was on one today. So, I heard that from multiple dudes, multiple people. Candy Waller, the Commanders show. John Kime said that. Others have talked about Sainristil was on one today. But the secondary in general was just really good today. Again, take it with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt. I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch Jeremy Reeves mic'd up, but that's out. That's been out for 2 days now. It's quick. It's like 4 minutes and 30 seconds long. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, check it out. But I just love his interaction at the very end of that mic'd up with Mikey Sainristil, where Mikey was pissed off because he didn't make a play. And he was telling, Revo, all it takes is one play. And Revo was like, one play can change a game. And Revo knows that. That happened in the Cowboys game last year, where he didn't make the tackle. And Revo, he beat himself up over that. Revo was so emotional after that game on some Carl Thomas shit. I'm emotional. He couldn't let go. And he can't let go. He was hurt. And it was just one play. And Mikey was pissed. He was like, bro, one play can change an entire game. It can be the difference between winning and losing. And Revo's like, that's the standard, bro. You should be pissed off. Love Mike Sainristil, bro. We got dogs on defense. We got dogs on defense. Despite them not necessarily getting the best work this summer, that's not their fault. They are doing what they're supposed to do. All I ever ask is that you dominate whoever they put in front of you. If they put inferior competition in front of you, dominate. I would be disappointed if you didn't. Now we really have a problem. If you're getting cooked by Chris Moore and Michael Gallup and Ja'Cory Brooks and Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey, we got a problem. We are in some trouble. If Braylon Sanders and Tay Martin are giving you work, we have an issue. Luckily, that's not the problem. That's not the case right now. So let's talk about the practice and talk about what actually took place in the practice. And we'll get a little bit more of it too. And a lot of this will be confirmed by Lonnell. But this is from the team website. This is an article that was written by Zach Selby, who detailed pretty much what went down at practice today. So we'll go through this in sequential order, starting with the first excerpt. It says, Sam Hartman, who started for the Gold team, had the most consistent day of the quarterbacks. Well, would you look at that? Sam Hartman had the most consistent day of the quarterbacks because he wasn't going up against the number one defense. He was going up against some backups defensively. We saw the backups against the Patriots on Friday night. They're not very good. So, of course, Sam Hartman would have the best day of all the quarterbacks. Despite not having the best offensive line in front of him, who's getting to the quarterback? All the guys that can actually get to the quarterback are on his team. He even scrambled in a score to put his team up 14-0. That ended up being the final score of the scrimmage. The Commanders separated the practice into two quarters, the second quarter and the fourth quarter, as we talked about at the top. His best throw went to running back Demetric Felton, who completed the pass on fourth down and put the offense in scoring position. He also threw a touchdown, or had the shovel pass touchdown to the option, It looked like they were running a speed option. That looked like some Brian Johnson play calling right there. They ran a speed option in the red zone, and he flipped it to C-Rod, who ran it in for the touchdown. And then the other both of the touchdowns, the 2 touchdowns that were scored, are up on the Commanders' website, or on the Commanders' social media pages. One of them, a Sam Hartman scramble, and then he did a terrible gritty. Never do that again, Sam. Love it, but never do that again. And then he did a speed option, shoveled it to C-Rod, who ran it in for the touchdown. Those were the 2 scores on the day. Brian Johnson was the Gold Team's offensive coordinator. Damn, I'm good. I haven't read this, by the way. I haven't read this. I know you're probably thinking that's bullshit, Louie T. You already knew that. No, I didn't. I just thought about how the Eagles' offense looked the year he was the offensive, play caller, and then we don't see speed options. We don't run speed options. I mean, I think we've done it with Jada maybe once or twice, but that's not something that's like a staple of our playbook. But that's something Brian Johnson would call. He was the Gold Team's offensive coordinator, and he was in his bag of tricks in the first quarter of play. With the offense in the red zone, he called a play that featured tight end Colson Yankoff flipping a completed pass from Hartman back to Casimir Allen to get inside the 5-yard line. Remember, Colson Yankoff was recruited as a high school quarterback. So, that helps that he can throw the football. Washington's Gold Team running backs had plenty of room to run throughout the morning. You think? Keep in mind, that's the same defense we saw against New England, who had plenty of room to run on Friday when they played against the Commanders' second and third team defense. Running back Chris Rodriguez Jr. scored the first touchdown of the day on a power option to the left. We saw that. That's the clip that I was referring to on the Commanders' social media platforms. Hartman pitched it out to the former 6th-round pick, who ran in untouched. The Gold Team's defense made life difficult for Jaden Daniels and the Burgundy team's offense. They recorded 3 sacks on the day. Ouch. 2, including 2 on Daniels' final drive of the first quarter. But they also put pressure on Daniels to get the ball out quickly. Bobby Wagner got in Daniels' face to force an overthrow to Deebo Samuel, who was wide open and likely would have scored had the pass been on target. We'll talk about that play in particular in a little bit. Von Miller also forced pressure that resulted in a drop from Zach Ertz on 4th down. Von Miller, on that particular play, got his hand up, dropped into coverage, got his hands up, and deflected that football on 4th down. That would have been a first down had it gotten to Ertz. Cornerback Mikey Sainristil was all over the field to start the day with 2 pass breakups on passes intended for Samuel and KJ Osborne. The Burgundy team's best day, their best, portion of the day came at the start of the second quarter of play. Tyler Biotish cleared the way for Brian Robinson Jr. on a screen that drew the offense closer to midfield. Osborne hauled in an explosive pass from Daniels, giving the Burgundy team its best field position of the day. However, Daniels threw 3 incompletions on his final 4 throws. His final throw of the day to Michael Gallup was short of the first down. Continuing on, linebacker Duke Riley, who they just signed after Sunday's practice, who was signed to the team earlier this week, made his presence felt in the first quarter. He sniffed out a screen to Rodriguez and forced an incompletion with the hit. Rookie cornerback Trey Amos had one of the best defensive plays of the day. Daniels had Gallup open near the right sideline, but Amos came in at the last second and batted the ball away. It seems like the game is starting to slow down, as he also had a strong preseason performance against the New England Patriots. Then he goes on to name the 9 players who did not participate. He said there were no major updates when any of those guys would return to the field. And then he just talks about some of the things DQ talked about, about the practice. So I just wanted to highlight this one quote. This is a piece of a tweet from Ben Standing today. And today was a struggle for the Burgundy team offense. And that's an understatement. They did not have a good game today. Did not have a good practice, rather. And Ben Stanek says, today was Jaden Daniels' worst practice I've covered. It wasn't all on him. As I said, this is a piece of a tweet from Ben Stanek. He then goes on to promote his Substack. But this was the part that stuck out to me, because you know, we've talked all summer about Jaden Daniels not having bad days. You know, Cornelius Lucas, who now plays for the Cleveland Browns, said, I never saw the kid have a bad day. And I keep reiterating, these days are starting to look like this, and it's getting progressively worse. Yesterday wasn't good. Today was worse than that. The day before that wasn't great, right? The joint practice was okay. It's getting progressively worse. They need to do something. We know what they need to do. Like, how much longer do you need to see this unfold? How much longer does this need to go on before something gets done? I'm almost nervous. I'm almost nervous to see what this looks like on Monday night. Now, the big difference on Monday night is Jaden can use his legs. The run game can help him out, take some of the pressure off of him. Not saying that it will, but it can. You know, if he has to tuck the ball and run and use his legs, he should be able to, you know. But I don't feel like there is a lot that he can rely on right now outside of Debo and Zach Ertz or as skill guys that he can throw the football to, unless he's throwing it to Eck or someone like that out of the backfield. Just doesn't feel like he's got a lot of places to go with the football right now. The offensive line isn't great. As you can see, he was harassed today. He was harassed. Now, thank goodness that Laramie Tunsil was out there. And he's fine. Because remember, the report was maybe he tweaked something. He didn't finish practice the other day. Had it been a game, he could have gone back in. But obviously, it's practice, so you don't need to push it. So he didn't go back in. But it was good to know that he was out there. He spoke to the media after practice. He did not like this format. He was like, this shit was crazy. He literally said this was crazy. It was wild. I'm glad it's over, he said. He did not like this. He's like, but we got through it. That's what he said. So this wasn't for everybody. But I just want Adam Peters to know sometimes the juice ain't worth the squeezing. We get it. We understand what you're doing here. I love the fact that you're standing on business and, you know, you're using analytics. We've become an analytics-driven organization. All of that, it's all good. I love it. But is it worth you not getting the proper reps for your star quarterback in his second season? Is it worth it to not sign his best receiver so that he doesn't have to endure this throughout all of the summer? We're going to talk about Terry and Jaden Daniels potentially still getting work, you know, off to the side, but the shit isn't getting any better. And I've been talking about this for the last week and a half. Like, it's progressively getting worse. And I don't want to sound like a broken record. I don't want to sound like I'm just bitching about shit, because the proof is in the pudding. Every day they're coming back and they're saying the red zone offense was terrible. The ball's hitting the ground a ton. Guys aren't making contested catches. Jaden's having to be perfect. Well, you see why. And now the offensive line is starting to struggle because he's probably got to hold on to it a tick longer because guys aren't separated. Maybe it's immediate pressure. I don't know. But there's a lot fundamentally wrong with what's going on with the offense. And again, they're not game planning. And there's ways to circumvent some of these things. And Lonnell talked about some of that. And we're going to get into that here in a second, because I thought he brought up some really good points. But ultimately, right now, I don't feel like the organization is acting in the best interest of their best player. That's how I feel. I love that they're trying to stand for something, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. I get it. but there are certain situations that you make exceptions for. This feels like one of them. This feels like one of them. There's only a select few people that if they ring your line at midnight, you're going to even pick up the phone. You may see somebody calling, I'm not answering that. Because you make an exception for certain people in certain situations. If you put your phone on do not disturb at a certain time at night, there may be 2 or 3 numbers that you tell your phone, hey, let that call through. That's important. Everybody else, do not disturb. I'll get back with you in the morning. Because you make an exception for certain people in certain situations. Not all people are created equal. Not all situations are created equal. Hence, all situations do not need to be handled in the same manner. This feels like a situation that doesn't need to be handled in the same manner. If this same situation, I get the very delicate nature of this negotiation and why this is such a tough one in the unique set of circumstances. I get it. You don't see this very often. And if this were to occur again with some other player, not named Terry McLaurin, I'd probably say, hey, do what you got to do. But to take it a step further, if this were to happen 3 years down the road, Jaden Daniels wouldn't be in year 2 needing his star receiver. He'd be in year 4 going into year 5, and he's comfortable now, and he'll be good at that point. That's not where we are right now. I don't think they're seeing the bigger picture right now. I think they think they're setting precedents of how things are done here. This is how we do things in Washington. And we're not going to make an exception for Terry McLaurin or anybody else. And I get it. But it's coming at the expense of your star quarterback. Is that a fair trade-off? Is that the message that you're trying to send? Nobody's above XYZ? Because in every organization, the star quarterback is above XYZ. Like everything you do is to put that guy in the best position to win. You've done everything right up until this point. Now, and there's still time for you to do the right thing here. I think the time is now. Like, do the right thing. You see what's going on here. Things aren't getting better. They're getting worse. Anyhow. So Rio had an interview with Lonnell Willingham. And I just want to point out some of the things that I thought Lonnell said that were very interesting. And again, Lonnell's not for everyone. That's fine. I happen to like Lonnell. I don't agree with everything he says, obviously. And I think sometimes he does do things for effect because he's trying to get a rise out of people and he wants the attention and he is clout chasing. Yes, I do think that that exists. A lot of people do that. I don't subscribe to that. That's not my thing, but other people do it. If that's your stick, do your thing. Who am I to knock the hustle? But again, I liken him to Brian Mitchell. It's a little bit different with B. Mitch because I think B. Mitch just does his out of sheer passion, right? He loves this team. He wants to see them do well. And when they don't, he gets pissed off. Sounds like a fan, right? But if you comb through some of the shit that B. Mitch says and him going off on his rants, if you comb through some of that, you're going to get to some gems. B. Mitch be saying some shit where you be like, that shit is spot on. Like when he told us about Jahan Dotson, he said, he didn't say no names, but we knew who he's talking about. He went on a rant, but he said, hey, if this dude don't tighten up, they going to get his ass out of here. And what happened? They traded his ass like a week later. B. Mitch told us. He be dropping some gems. You just got to sort through all of the other shit, right? Same thing with Lonnell. Lonnell be saying some real shit. You just got to sort through all of the other shit that you don't want to get to it. So I'll give you some of the things that I thought he said that were really interesting to me, right? So he talked about Jaden and Terry, and he talked about, you know, Terry being out at the field and him, you know, the picture that Grant Paulson took of Jaden talking to Terry. That's the picture we just talked about. And he said he's heard that those two have been throwing in the bubble. And Ed said that he had heard that from Chick Hernandez as well. So if those two are getting in work, this is the beauty of Terry being there. They could get work in. Great. And look, we don't know if that's true or not. This is hearsay. People are speculating. My counter to that is getting work together in the bubble is great. It's better than nothing, right? So wise man once told me, slow money is better than no money. Some work is better than no work. But you running routes against air and having your quarterback throw you the football, working on your timing and all that stuff is great. But it's not the same as running the offense within the structure and framework of what the play call is, you know, with Debo running his route, you running your route, how y'all play off of each other, the proper spacing, timing, all of that stuff. It's not the same. You're not replicating those reps doing that. So while I'm encouraged if that is in fact true, which we don't know that to be the case, but I am encouraged if they are getting work in the bubble, it's still not the same as him being out there and getting live reps with the first team offense, with Debo. He really hasn't gotten any reps with Debo. Debo's like, I still really ain't worked with this dude. Remember, Terry was there for the first and second phases. He was out at the very end of phase 2. They barely were on the field for phase 2. It wasn't until phase 3 where they really started getting into the concepts, because in OTAs, that's when you're installing the offense. Terry was gone by the time they got to phase 3. Terry wasn't there for minicamp. So Debo still really hasn't worked with Terry McLaurin. That's not okay. So that's interesting if they're working out in a bubble, right? He talked about Jacob Martin. You know, I like Jacob Martin. I think Jacob Martin can play. I just, there's a lot of untapped potential with Jacob Martin. And I'm hoping that here in Washington, it finally blossoms into something. I'm not trying to recreate Dante Fowler Jr. I'm not trying to recreate that. We didn't even expect that last year. We were just looking for 6.5 sacks. Man gave us double digits. That's all I'm looking for from Jacob Martin, is for him to have a career year here. A career year for him is 5.5, 6 sacks. I don't think he's ever had a 5-sack season. I'm just looking for him to set a new career high here. That's it. I'll be pleased with that. He said Jacob Martin continues to look really good. I believe him. And I can tell you this. I said earlier, man, you know, I don't know if Jacob Martin's going to make this roster, yada, yada, yada. Von Miller signing here is a bad omen for Jacob Martin. No, it's not. Jacob Martin's on this roster. He's not in danger at all. There's some other guys that may be in danger, but Jacob Martin isn't one of them. He talked about Luke, Debo, and Jalen Lane as the starting receivers today. I talked about that already. That is not okay. That is not a good group as your starting receivers with Jaden Daniels on the Burgundy squad. You want to know why they got dominated? Because Luke, Debo, and Jalen were your 3 starting receivers. Luke and Jalen Lane on the outsides, Debo in the slot. Who you beating with that trio? he said that Tay Martin continues to make plays when he gets opportunities. I mean, he made plays in the preseason game. We'll see if it amounts to anything, if they give him more opportunities. He ran with the ones yesterday in the walkthrough or the jog through. He got some reps with the ones. We'll see if he continues to get opportunities or not. But I highly doubt that Tay Martin is the answer. He said that Duke Riley made some plays today. Doesn't surprise me. And we already read that Duke Riley made a play early in practice today, early in the scrimmage. He said that Duke Riley made a couple of plays today. And, you know, Rio's response to that was because Lonnell tweeted it out. And Rio said, those tweets about Duke Riley, those were two more, because I think he tweeted out about him twice. He said that was two more tweets than you've had about Dom Hampton the entire summer. And, you know, his response to that was he actually didn't see the Dom Hampton, you know, release coming. He was like, Dom Hampton hadn't been terrible this summer. He wasn't great, but he thought he had been solid. Clearly he wasn't good in the preseason game, but he didn't see it coming. But Duke Riley, he's another one of those dudes that just flies around. Doesn't always end up well for his team, but he's flying around out there. That when I think about Dan Quinn coach defenses, I think about guys like Duke Riley who just fly around. Jeremy Reeves, who just fly around. Like, that's a hallmark of a DQ defense. Dudes that just fly around with reckless abandon. He said that Jaden missed Debo on the deep ball. We talked about that in the breakdown where there was pressure. There was pressure in his face. Bobby Wagner got in his face, you know, forced him to throw the ball probably a little sooner than he wanted to, and Jaden put too much air on it. Debo beat, I forget who he was going up against. It might have been Mikey Samersdale off the line of scrimmage. And he got back by him, and he had, you know, a considerable amount of steps on him, where if that's on the money, it's a touchdown. But that's one of those instances where, you know, not having protection up front cost you. Then Jalen Lane got a step on Trey Amos. This is from Lonnell. And it wasn't much. It's not like he cooked him. Not like how Debo had gotten a step on, you know, a few steps on Mikey Samersdale. Lane had gotten a step on Trey Amos, and Jaden dropped the shit in the bucket. Amos was there, but in Lonnell's words, it wasn't a pass defense by Trey Amos. It was just a drop by Jalen Lane. Flat out drop. So this is what, you know, Jaden's been dealing with a lot of camp. And we got to see it firsthand in the game on Friday. Chris Moore with 2 drops right in his hands. KJ Osborne, a touchdown right in his hands. Couldn't come up with it. That was highly contested in the end zone. It wasn't like he just flat out dropped him like Chris Moore did. It was contested, but it's a catch you expect to be made. Just think about the Terry McLaurin play against Cincinnati. That wasn't like Terry was wide open. That was great coverage. A guy had his hands wedged in between Terry's, and he still caught the ball falling out of bounds because Terry is the contested catch king. You got to catch the shit when dudes are draped all over you. This is the NFL. Lonnell said, and I found this very interesting. He said that, and this is a way to circumvent all of this conversation that we're having. If we get to the season and Terry decides he's not going to play, and Noah Brown's not healthy, or you have one or the other, but you're not really confident in the guys that are behind them necessarily. And I just want to reiterate this too, because it probably feels like I'm just shitting all over these receivers. And that is not my intent. I am frustrated with the current set of circumstances that exist. Let me make one thing abundantly clear. I don't have a problem with Luke McCaffrey. I don't have a problem with Jalen Lane. I have a problem with them playing positions and that they don't belong and playing out of position. This is why you always hear me say you need a number one wide receiver, because it slots everyone where they belong. Because there's no Terry and Noah, and I don't want to forget that. You're taking guys and you're moving them up 2 spots. Jalen Lane is not supposed to be any more than a number 4 option on an offense as a rookie right now. At best, he probably should be your 5th option at receiver. We're asking him to be the 2 or the 3. DQ at his press conference talked about Jalen Lane being a number 2 receiver. That is asinine. That is asinine. Okay? He should be a 4 or a 5 at best. Right now, we've got him as a 2 or a 3. The man started out wide as a Z receiver today. That doesn't make any sense, guys and gals. That doesn't make any sense. Luke McCaffrey at best right now is a 3rd or 4th option. He's probably better suited, much like Jalen Lane, to be a 4th or 5th option right now. They had Luke McCaffrey out there as a 2nd or 3rd option. I don't have an issue with Luke McCaffrey or Jalen Lane. I have an issue with them. Same thing I said about Ja'Cory Brooks. I don't have an issue with a rookie, undrafted at that, trying to make this roster. He's going to have his ups and downs. That's why he was undrafted. I like Ja'Cory Brooks. I thought he played well against New England on Friday night. I'd like to see more of him, actually. My problem is he shouldn't be anywhere near the ones. Not when we're playing against other teams. You want to put him at practice when you're going up against the 1st or 2nd team defense? Go ahead, put him out there with the ones, see what he can do. But when we take the show on the road and we're doing a joint practice, he should be nowhere near the 1st team offense. Now we're trying real shit against another opponent. But yet he was out there. Now he made a one-hand catch. He also had a drop. That is what you get from an undrafted rookie, trying to figure things out. Inconsistent play, which is fine. I just don't want that around my star quarterback, right? But again, hence, here we are. So I just want to make that clear. I don't have a Jalen Lane, Luke McCaffrey, Ja'Cory Brooks problem. I don't have a KJ Osborne, Michael Gallup problem. I have a problem with those guys being pushed into situations and being asked to do things that they shouldn't be asked to do. That is my problem. All right. So back to the point that Lonnell was saying. He said that what they could potentially do if there's no Terry, no Noah, or there's not one of those guys, like you have one or the other, still have Debo, but you only have 2 receivers that you really feel good about. He said he believes that the confidence in Ben Sinnott is growing enough to the point where you could see more 12 personnel, one running back, 2 tight ends, which means 2 receivers, 2 tight ends on the field at the same time. So you eliminate a weakness, which is your receiver position, by taking one of them off the field and potentially adding a strength if you believe that, Zach Ertz and Ben Sinnott are a better duo out there than 3 receivers and just Zach Ertz. You feel like it's better to have Ben Sinnott out there than as opposed to a third receiver. You have the second tight end out there. That works too. You can do a lot out of that formation as well. So just again, more food for thought. You do the dishes. Just a lot of interesting stuff from Lonnell's, interview with Rio. Like I said, it's a really good watch. If you want to check it out, I suggest you do that. But it's just interesting to hear how things have gone here of late. And Lonnell, he said that if this team is able to stop the run, which we don't know that they can do right now, after hearing everything that has transpired at practice, having seen the preseason game, knowing that the depth isn't what we had hoped, but we already knew where we were, but this was reinforcing that. Maybe a wake-up call to some that thought this team's depth as a whole was great. No, it is not. Having seen it on Friday night, listening to the dominance of the defense throughout camp, the offensive line having some injuries, them trying to kind of shuffle the deck there, figure it out, the lack of any real wide receiver stepping up outside of Debo. We really don't know what this that's why I wanted Cincinnati to play their starters, and I'm so happy that they're going to, because that might be a cold dose of reality. If we get out there on Monday night and Joe Burrow and company are just surgical, ripping our defense apart. And again, it's Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. They have talent at the tight end position. Like, it could happen. And if it does, I'm not going to be thrilled about it, but I can still justify it by saying, hey, there's only a select few. I can count on one hand how many teams have the ability to do what they just did. Because there's only 4 other quarterbacks out there that are one of them ones. That's number one. And then you're not going to find many duos at the receiver position better than the one that they're putting on the field. So there's ways to look at it, but at the end of the day, the key is, can we stop the run? If we stop the run, Lonnell says he really believes this group up front is going to get pressure. He said, look out for a lot of twists, stunts, loops, because this is going to be an active front. We saw the Johnny Newton sack forced fumble of Drake May. That came on a game, right? That came on an end tackle stunt where Johnny Newton loops around after Martin takes 2. He loops around and gets free and gets to the quarterback. He said that's the kind of action and activity that they've seen. That's what they did today. That's what got, Dorrance Armstrong. I said this last year. And I don't know, because he came from Dallas with them, I don't know why they didn't utilize him more inside last year. It took them entirely too long. We didn't see Dorrance Armstrong inside until the end of the season. And then, coincidentally enough, he started to take off and started to be a problem. And not all of his pressure and sacks came from inside in the postseason, but his most impactful one did. And down the stretch, he was wreaking havoc from inside. I don't know why it took him so long, but they've been standing him up. They've been moving him around. They've been using him almost as like a blitzer. And they're doing different things with him. And, Lonnell said that the package, and we heard about this earlier in camp, and I got excited. I can't speak for anybody else. I got excited. But he said Louisville on one side, Vaughn on the other side. You got Dorrance inside, and then you got Daron Payne inside. or it could be Johnny Newton, whoever you think is the better of those pass rushers. Knock yourself out. But that is a formidable group getting after the quarterback on 3rd and 8. So I said all of that to say this. There is a lot of excitement and buzz being generated around this team, obviously. I'm excited to see this defense, more so than the offense. Not because they've struggled and there's no Terry and no Noah and the offensive line is, look, I still have the utmost confidence in Cliff, Jaden, Zach, Eckler, B-Rob, and all the guys that I've seen produce here. I can't say that I have all this confidence in Debo. I just expect Debo to be Debo. So I think he's going to play well. So you can add him to the list of guys that I have confidence in when the season starts. And I expect Terry to be out there when the season starts. Whether he's got a new extension or not, I expect him to be out there. That doesn't mean he will be. We've been wrong about this Terry situation every step of the way because I didn't think we would be here still having this conversation on August the 12th about Terry McLaurin. Thought this would have been done already. I kept talking about, because I tried to make myself feel better, just the psychology of the situation. Oh, don't just make sure you keep in mind where Adam Peters came from and when they get the deals done in San Francisco. But I was like, but this is Terry, though. That's what I kept saying in my mind, because I'm like, but this is Terry, though. That shit might apply to Sam Cosmi and, Jeremy Reeves or some other dude that's been here that we think should get paid. But this is Terry, though. This is different. Those rules don't apply to him. Bullshit. We found out the hard way that those rules apply to him as well. Unfortunately. The only guy that I feel like gets a pass here with this group is Jaden Daniels. Which is probably how it should be, but now it's starting to affect every aspect of this team because I think the defense might be getting a false sense of how good they are. I think. Which it ain't bad to have an abundance of confidence, but we're going to find out on Monday night just how good this defense is. How well they can get pressure on the quarterback. Not like Cincinnati has the best offensive line in the world. We know that, look, Joe stroked us last year. I be stroking. Yeah, that's what I be doing. Joe was stroking to the east. Joe was stroking to the west. Joe was throwing to the cornerbacks that he loved the best. Yeah, I think that guy can be picked on tonight. I'm going to throw it to him. You just put Jamar Chase on this side, he threw a touchdown. Put Jamar Chase on that side, threw a touchdown. Joe had his way. But that was last year. I want to see what it looks like this year. I'm anxious to see what this defense looks like. So. I was showing my age right there. Y'all don't know nothing about that. That's another story onto itself. For y'all old heads, y'all know what I was talking about. All right. Let me get to the comment section real quick and we'll get out of here. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Ah, my guy, Duncan. It's been a while. And again, you left, the last time you spoke, you left on a high note. It was the most sober that I think any of us had ever seen you. You talked for about 30 minutes straight and made perfectly good sense. Words were spelled correctly. The sequence of the words in the sentence were in order. It was a revelation. So much so, somebody left a comment in the comment section of that video, and they said, Duncan must be in AA. And he is absolutely sober right now. And he's completing the class. I had to agree. I had to agree. Sobriety is a powerful thing, man. Today it was scrub versus scrub. I don't love the comment, but I love the fact that outside of missing punctuation behind the verses, because that's an abbreviation for verses, the actual word, that's a good sentence from you. And I don't knock people for punctuation on comments. So if I were a teacher here, I would have given you full credit for that, even though you have an extra space there between the apostrophes or the quotation marks on the first set. Doesn't matter. I'm proud of you. Keep it up. All right. I want to see how long this lasts for. Metaphor Ariel, been a member for 47 months. Salute. Who writes, hire a lip reader. What are Terry and Adam saying? Look, man, everybody's been doing their best to try to figure that thing out. I seen somebody in the comment section ask Grok what was being said. Grok made up some bullshit. Probably telling people what they want to hear, but nobody knows what was being said there. I would love to know. Don't we all? Wouldn't we all love to know? Corin Smith, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Corin Smith writes, how are you, Lou? How are you, Corin? I'm doing great. Great. My son's rubbing off on me. I'm doing great. I'm doing great, man. What about you? Hope all is well in your neck of the woods. Put on AP's cap. And what do you do if Debo balls out this season? You can't let him walk. Terry trying to get his before that decision. I mean, this is the thing. And I've been thinking about what if that happens? Because there's a very realistic possibility that it does happen. You're not going to franchise tag Debo, right? Let's say you get something done with Terry and he's under contract. You're not going to franchise tag Debo, are you? No, that's too much money. You're not even paying Debo $20 million this year. Well, why would you franchise tag him, right? This is the thing. You're not going to pay two receivers at or over the age of 30 years old, which both of them will be after this season. Both will be 30 years old. If Debo balls, you hope you get a compensatory third round pick for him leaving and signing a big deal with somebody else. You know, a really solid contract with somebody else. I don't think Debo is back after this year. I just don't see any, unless he's willing to come back here on a 1-year deal for solid money, but they're not going to overpay. A deal similar to the one that he signed this year. If he's willing to come back on a 1-year deal like that, I can see him coming back. But if somebody's offering him a 3-year, $48 million deal, which is 16 per, which I don't know if we would even be willing to pay him. And it's not really the years as much as it is the guarantees from that deal. And let's say 32 of it is fully guaranteed and the last year is voidable, right? All the guarantees are in the first 2 years and the last year is no guaranteed money so you can get out. He's going to take that deal instead of the deal with us because 32 million guaranteed is more than 15, 16, 17 million guaranteed, right? Which is the fight that Terry's in right now. Is I want long-term stability. I want the deal that's going to ensure that I make a ton of money over the next 2-3 years guaranteed instead of play out this year at, you know, and if I hit all the incentives, let's say 22 million and some change. And then next year, let's say I get franchise tagged and that deal's, you know, that franchise tag's around 30. Well, that's 52 million these last 2 years. But guess what? I was already getting the money that I'm getting this year. That 30 is only, you know, 1 year. And I would have been getting, let's say, $60 million guaranteed. Well, that's only half of it that I just got. So that's the fight Terry's in right now, the guarantees. I don't think Debo's back unless it's under the auspice that he's willing to come back on a deal that makes sense for us. On a 1-year deal, as you can see, they're not giving Debo a 3-year deal. I don't even think they're giving Debo a 2-year deal. Maybe they'd be willing to do a 2-year deal. All of the money guaranteed is up front, and they could get out after this season. Essentially, it'd be a 1-year deal with a team option on the second year if they decided to bring him back. Maybe they would do that. But I don't really see that being the case. He'd have to ball out, and when I say ball out, like worst case scenario, he's a Pro Bowler, but he's in the discussion for, maybe being an All-Pro. Maybe he doesn't make it because there's still, Justin Jefferson and all these dynamic receivers in the conference. He doesn't make it, but he's in the conversation, but he is a Pro Bowler. And you're saying, Debo looked like he turned the clock back. Maybe they talk, but again, I can't see them doing anything long-term. It'd be something short, like a 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal, max. And I just don't know if that's what Debo's looking for. I think he's looking for, like Terry, his last big payday. And a 1-year deal doesn't do that for you. So. Lang Hughes. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Lang Hughes writes, it's practice. 17-1 out there, week 1. JD Carvin. Are we sure 17's out there week 1? I'm going to speak it into existence. Yes, I believe he'll be out there. I don't see him sitting out games. I don't think Adam Peters would let that happen. I think he's going to try and get something done before then. But look, again, as I've said already, I didn't expect us to be here on August the 12th having this conversation about Terry McLaurin not participating because he hasn't gotten his extension yet. I didn't expect to be going into the dress rehearsal against the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday night without my best receiver, without our best receiver. So there's a lot of things that I didn't think would transpire that here's the only thing I can guarantee you. They're not trading Terry. I'll stand firm on that. They're not trading him. It doesn't make any sense to him. That I can assure you of. Past that, I can't tell you what the hell's going to happen. But if 17's on the field, along with Debo and Zach Ertz, I feel really good. I feel really good. TJ Ryder, stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB. Mob, you know what to do. Show TJ some love. Welcome him with open arms. Mob, welcome TJ Ryder to the squad. Glad to have you on board. Going to be a hell of a year. Looking forward to chopping it up with y'all. Christopher McLaughlin, my guy, Chris, been a member for 10 months. Really appreciate you. Who writes, hey, Lou, what's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise, as always, Chris. The concern about Terry's deal not getting done and potentially missing regular season games is costing this team wins and seeding for the playoffs. Thoughts? I can't go that far and say what it's costing us right now. I can tell, for the future, rather. I can tell you what it's costing us right now. It's costing us opportunities, valuable reps, valuable time on task that you can't get back. I always tell people, I tell the kids and the youth of America, I'll tell anybody that wants to listen, the most valuable and precious resource that exists as humans for us is time. I call it a non-renewable resource because you can't get that back. You cherish the time that you have. You maximize the time that you have. You don't take it for granted. We're missing out opportunities for Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels and this first team offense to get valuable reps together, time on task. You can get more money That's a renewable resource. You can get more clothes. You can get more shoes. Hell, you can even get more friends. I don't know if I recommend that, but you can get more friends. You can't get time back. And the time that they're missing here, you know, squabbling over whatever it is they're squabbling over. And we know it's money, but we don't know the exact specifics, you know, the analytics of it, whatever the case may be. It's time to put that shit aside and do what's best for the greater good. Jaden Daniels is the greater good. He is struggling right now with this group of receivers because there's no Noah Brown. Maybe if Noah Brown were out there, it wouldn't be as noticeable. It wouldn't be as bad, but he's not out there. And we can't count on Noah Brown to play 17 games. Nobody has been able to rely on Noah Brown to play 16 or 17 games. Didn't do it in Dallas, hasn't done it here, and I don't think he's going to do it here this year. So I wouldn't put my eggs in the Noah Brown basket. So I can't say that this is costing us an opportunity for seeding and this, that, and the third, because I don't know of the long-term ramifications of this. Like a commenter just said, right? Like Lang Hughes just said. 17's back week 1 along with Debo, and we rolling, bro. We rolling. And it's like he never missed a beat. That could be the case. I want to believe that, but I've watched too much football. I've seen these type of situations play out. It usually doesn't go that way. It usually doesn't go that way. So we'll see. I can't say that it's costing us seeding, but I know Jamar Chase not practicing at all last year, to me, isn't a coincidence that the Bengals got off to yet another slow start and lost the game. They had no business losing to the New England Patriots, and they missed the playoffs by 1 game. Am I wrong for saying that that whole ordeal cost them the ability to make the playoffs last year? Yeah, the defense sucked. And yeah, they had a lot of shit go wrong for them throughout the course of the season. Doesn't matter. You had no business losing to one of the worst teams in the league at home week 1. But they did. So I'm not comparing our situation to theirs either. You know, they were dysfunctional and they had the Jamar Chase thing going. A little bit different what they got going on over there, but a distraction is a distraction. This is a distraction. And again, it's not just, you know, the players being asked about it, the coaching staff being asked about it, it becoming repetitive. It's showing itself on the field in practice. And like I said, it's not just hurting Jaden Daniels. The defense isn't getting the quality of work that it needs. They're going to get some work on Monday, though, against the Bengals. That's for damn sure. We'll see how good they are then. I don't know if it's costing this team regular season games or not. It's too early for me to decide and be able to say that. We may ultimately look back on this comment from you and say you were spot on back on August the 12th. But it's kind of hard to make that declaration right now. I hate it here. I hate it in this space. I just want Terry McLaurin back on the field. I don't like it here. I don't like my Terry on the sideline in a hoodie on August 12th. I would prefer him to be in pads and a helmet making plays for 5. I prefer Terry to be one of the dudes talking shit as a member of the burgundy team to the gold team as he's giving them work. But that's not where we at right now. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. As always, truly appreciate you, Chris. who writes, "Hey Lou, what's up, Chris? 2 questions. 1, with Lattimore and Amos as your top 2 cornerbacks, do you expect more 8 in the box to stop the run and blitz more? Why or why not? And are you expecting Austin Eckler? And what are you expecting from Austin Eckler this season and why?" So the whole 8 in the box thing, I don't think you're going to see 8 in the box. I wouldn't put 8 in the box. So this is the beauty of being able to stop the run with just a regular box, 7 guys, is it allows you to play that 2 high shell, keep everything in front of you. That's what the Eagles were able to do last year. They played cover 4. They played that 4 high shell. They kept everything in front of them. 2 safeties deep. Their corners played deep, basically played man on the outside, but they stayed deeper than the deepest, wider than the widest, kept everything in front of you, and then rallied up and tackled. You couldn't run the ball against their front. And so it allowed them to just play conservatively, jump routes, muck things up, and just be this really tough defense to go against, right? Because Vic Fangio doesn't blitz a lot. Didn't have to. That's the ideal formula, is to not have to blitz a ton, stop the run with 7 defenders, right? And be able to play your safeties back. That's an ideal, if you live in an ideal world, that's what you want to do. If they can stop the run the way that they hope they can, then that will allow them to play man-to-man on the outside, keep the safeties deep. Look, Joe Witt blitzed last year when he had no confidence in his safety, in his corners, in the secondary as a whole, but the corners in particular. Now, like Lonnell brought this up. And I think it's one of those statistics that, while true, it's misleading if not applied properly. Joe Witt blitzed, I think, 7th most of any, defensive coordinator in the NFL last year. While that is true, think about how many times it was just 5 men, and 5 men equals a blitz. 5 guys, coming after the quarterback on a play is considered a blitz. Anything more than 4 is a blitz. I mean, how many times was it Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu mugging the A gap? One of them blitzes, the other drops. How many times was it both of them, rushed double A gap? How many times was it Frankie added himself as a rusher off the edge to a 4-man rush, and it was 5 guys? Like, it wasn't sophisticated. It wasn't like we were rushing 6 or 7 a bunch and it's cover 0 behind it. I don't see that being the case. But when you can play man on the outside, when you can play man across the board, because I think they feel good about their 3 corners and both of their safeties, if you can play man coverage, it does free you up to get a little bit more frisky up front, do a little bit more, but it starts with stopping the run. They got to do that first. But I think if you've got your corners playing the kind of football that they think these guys can play and stay connected to these receivers and be around the ball, it will allow them to be a little bit more aggressive and call some of the things that he might not have been able to call a season ago. As far as, but again, I don't think that's not going to give them the freedom to send another guy, because you don't want to expose yourself. Just because you can D teams up and play man on the outside doesn't mean you want to be able to do that without the freedom, without the safety or the safety net of the 2 safeties, the 2 deep safeties. Like, you play middle of the field close, which is 1 safety, and that guy's responsibility is to play the ball on each side. That's a lot tougher than middle of the field open, but you got 2 high safeties, 1 on each side, that can clearly take away the threat of a deep shot and make teams earn it down the field. So I just think stopping the run in your base defense is going to be paramount for this defense, and then you go from there. I don't think they want to add another rusher or another blitzer or another defender to the box to stop the run. That's not ideal because now it leaves you susceptible to giving up the big play. And then what am I expecting from Austin Ekeler this season? And so Lonnell, he said that he thinks Bill could potentially eat into Austin Eckler's touches, which wouldn't shock me if that happened. But Eckler's still a big part of this offense. If he's healthy, and that's a big if because, you know, the concussions are a big thing, and he had 2 of them last year. So that's something to be mindful of. I don't know if they're going to put him on kickoffs, right? Clearly, they don't have him back there in the preseason, but why put him back there in the preseason to take unnecessary hits, even if that's what you plan on doing in the regular season? He may be back there on kickoffs, but even if he's not, right now, he's a huge part of what they do in the pass game, out of the backfield, and they still hand it to him. So I look at Eck and I see what he did last year, and I say, let me just pull up his numbers from last year real quick. I think it's going to be on par with what he did last year, to be honest with you. Let's see. Austin Ekeler stats. So last year, Eck had 367 yards rushing on 77 attempts. So he had 367, 4 touchdowns on the ground in 12 games. That's the lowest of his career since his rookie season. Okay. Now, the touches as a running back were the lowest since his rookie season. Again, it's the first time he hasn't had 100 rushes in a season since his rookie season. So obviously last year was a tough year due to the injuries. That said, he still was able to generate 366 yards receiving. No touchdowns through the air, which I think is going to change this year. He's going to catch a pass and score a touchdown. Our thing last year was Jaden. It was so hard for him to throw the ball to somebody outside of the end zone and have them run it into the end zone. It just, for whatever reason, didn't happen a ton last season. But Austin Ekeler had 367 rush yards, 366 receiving yards, and he had, let's see how many return yards he had. He had 594 return yards, which landed him as a second team All-Pro. And so, and remember, that was with the one against the Giants, I want to say in the second week of the season, being called back, which was a touchdown due to a penalty. So he had over 1,000 yards from scrimmage last year. When you factor in his return ability, again, these aren't great numbers by his standards. Just for reference, his last year, which was sort of a down year, remember people said that he was washed, this, that, and the third, coming from Los Angeles the year prior. He played in 14 games with the Chargers the year before. He had 628 yards rushing, and he had another 436 receiving. So just between those two, he had over 1,000 yards. He didn't even get close to either one of those numbers. Well, the receiving, he was short by 70 yards, but he wasn't even close to the rushing totals. He didn't play in as many games. He didn't start nearly as many games. He started all 14 of those games in 2023 as a member of the Chargers. He started 6 games for us last year, and he only played in 12 due to the concussions. So I can see X production being very similar to what it was last year, even if he's completely healthy. Like I don't think he's going to get a more pronounced role with the emergence of Bill and a healthy Brian Robinson Jr. I think that's right around where you want him. I mean, obviously, if he didn't get hurt, he would have touched it more. He would have touched it over 100 times, probably on the ground. He would have probably had another 10 or 11 catches, 12 catches throughout the course of the year. Maybe he would have made it to 50 catches on the season. He was at 35 this year. With, 5 more games under his belt, he might have had 15 more catches. If you say he averaged 3 catches per game, which that's what his, numbers pretty much bear out. 12 games, 35 catches, just shy of 3 catches per game. So if you extrapolate that over a 17-game season, it'd be roughly right around 50 catches. I could see him kind of duplicating those type of numbers again this year. Now, the number that I don't necessarily know if I see replicating is him on kickoffs. He was so good for us last year when he was healthy. I don't know if that's something we can rely on this year. I don't even know if they want him to do that just based off of the volatile nature of kickoffs, which is where one of his concussions took place. Well, hell, both of them, I think, took place on kickoffs. I'm trying to think the one he sustained against Cincinnati, did that come on a kickoff return? I'm not sure. He had a big one to start the second half against the Bengals in that week 3 contest. I'm not sure if he got a concussion on a kick, but we know the second one against Dallas clearly came on a kickoff return. So, I don't know if they're going to put him back there or not, but I think his numbers are going to be very similar to what they were last year. Mr. 21 Champ Barbecue. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, what's your thoughts on signing Amari Cooper? So this has been a topic that I've seen starting to formulate in the comment section of a number of my videos, and maybe it's starting to formulate on other channels as well. I think I made mention of it yesterday that I wouldn't be opposed to Amari Cooper here. However, what does Amari Cooper think of himself at this point of his career? Because a lot of times when a guy has been the guy for so long, they don't see themselves as a role player. That was the problem with a guy like Cam Newton towards the end of his career. Cam Newton didn't see himself as a backup. Cam Newton still saw himself as Superman, as MVP Cam Newton, and he wasn't that anymore. That was clear in New England. He made all these excuses why it didn't work in New England, this, that, and the third. We just didn't see it. We didn't see it anymore. When he came back with the Panthers, again, it's tough to ask a guy to come back to a team in season and ball, but he didn't appear to be that guy anymore, right? Usually the player is the last one to realize that he's not that guy anymore. Does Amari Cooper view himself as someone at this juncture of his career that's willing to be a role player? Or does he still see himself as a legitimate number 1 wide receiver? If that's the case, this is not the place for him. Because that's not what we would be asking him to do. Not that he's a malcontent or anything of the sort, but everywhere he's been viewed as a number 1 receiver, whether it was Buffalo last year, because they didn't have a number 1 receiver. That's why they traded for him. Whether it's Cleveland before that, the Raiders, or Dallas, or whatever. He was always viewed as a number 1. That's not what he is at this juncture of his career. Hence, he's not on an NFL roster right now. Can he help someone? Absolutely. And I would be willing if he was like, yo, I'd come on and be, your wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4 or your first guy off the bench if you need me. Yeah, hell yeah. Sign me up for some Amari Cooper. But also, I don't know what his price is, but I can't imagine he's going to be super cheap either. You're not trying to pay a receiver a ton of money at this point of camp going into the season. I don't think that makes a ton of sense either. So I'm interested. You damn right I'm interested. Is he interested in playing a lesser role? Because that's what his career arc to this point suggests, that he's no longer that guy. So at this point, I was interested in Keenan Allen before he went back to the Chargers. I was interested. I'll take a veteran receiver that has a proven track record that can play. I'm interested, because the veterans that we have right now don't necessarily seem like guys that we can consistently rely on right now. Again, maybe we get to the third preseason game and we feel a lot better about Michael Gallup or KJ Osborne or one of those guys. But right now, it just doesn't feel that way. And again, they're there every day. Like, they know where Noah Brown is in his recovery. They know if they had a game on Monday that actually counted, like if Monday night's game against Cincinnati was week 1, they know if he'd be able to play or not. They know. They know how far away he is. They know that where he'll be, or at least where they think he'll be, in 3 weeks from now when the season kicks off. And if they're not tripping, which they aren't, then I'm not tripping, because that tells me they feel like they still got an ace in their back pocket. That ace is getting Terry back on the field and Noah Brown getting healthy. And all of a sudden, all of these conversations that we had in August mean absolutely nothing. Right? I'm not trying to induce mass hysteria. That's not what I'm looking to do. You know, that is the opposite of what I try to do. I try to be the voice of reason most of the time. Stop you guys from freaking out, right? But we see the impact that this is having on the offense, on Jaden, on the defense. It's not beneficial for anyone. In a year where you think you have a legitimate shot at contending for a title, this is the last thing that you need. So I'm all in on adding a veteran receiver if there's one out there. Amari Cooper seems to be the hot name that's circulating. I'm interested. Is he interested? How much is he looking for, et cetera, et cetera? But I can tell you this. He wasn't very good last year in Buffalo. He wasn't very good in Buffalo last year. But that doesn't mean he can't be good here. But I said all of that. Let me just look and see what veteran free agents still exist out on the market. I guarantee you there's absolutely nothing left. All right. Amari Cooper, Gabe Davis, Nelson Aguilar, Tyler Boyd, Jamison Crowder is still out there. Allen Robinson, Deontay Hardy, Brandon Powell. I mean, there's nothing here, guys. There is nothing here. Amari Cooper. Okay, right now, Spot Rack is saying that his market value is somewhere roughly around, and again, Spot Rack is just estimating. We don't know what he would actually get. But they're estimating that his market value is somewhere around $18, $19 million. Like, I don't know if that's how much he would actually get, but it's too much money for Amari Cooper, bro, to come in here and be your third, fourth option. That's why I don't think he's viable in Washington. I don't know how much you're not getting Amari Cooper on the Von Miller deal you just signed Von Miller to. You're not getting him on a 1-year, $7.5 million deal. That's not what Amari Cooper is signing up to play football for. So I'm not interested in Gabriel Davis. I'm not interested in Aguilar. Tyler Boyd isn't bad. He would be a solid role guy, but again, he'd be just like KJ Osborne and Michael Gallup. I mean, his best football is clearly behind him. So I think that's kind of where they sit. They haven't brought in any receivers for a workout other than the guys that they've signed. Right? They could have brought in an Amari Cooper. They could have brought in a Nelson Aguilar for a tryout, for a workout. Instead, they brought in Tay Martin and Braylon Sanders. Like they're telling you what they're interested in right now. They're not interested in a veteran. They're looking for younger guys that can come in here and compete. Bodies, really. So I don't see them doing anything along the lines of Amari Cooper, but I would be interested in signing a veteran just based off of where we are. Lang Hughes, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Chase held out last year. Joe Burrow had an all-time quarterback season. You're missing the point, though. Jamar Chase had a really good season. Joe Burrow had the best statistical season of his career. They missed the playoffs because Jamar Chase missed the entire summer, and they started the season 0-3. That's the point I'm making, Lang Hughes. Not that Chase still had a good season. Not that Joe Burrow had one of the best statistical seasons. He got off to a slow start. That cost them, right? I don't know if they would have beaten us or if they would have won their, second game of the season. I forget who they played week 2. I don't know if they would have won those games if Jamar Chase. I do think they would have beaten the New England Patriots in week 1 if Jamar Chase hadn't just showed up for practice 3 days prior to the first game of the season. He was a non-factor in that week 1 contest. You tell me a Jamar Chase in rhythm with Joe Burrow isn't going out there and cooking the New England Patriots. I don't care if Christian Gonzalez was across from him. You don't think he's going out there week 1 and getting busy? You see what they're doing? You see what they look like right now in the preseason? You saw what they did last week? That's Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase in sync. 2s, 3s, 1s, 0s, it don't matter. That's not what it looked like week 1 against New England last year. That's what I'm saying. The closer we get to the start of the season and there's no Terry, that's the risk of it looking like it looked like for them in week 1 and week 2. And it took them about 3 weeks. Our game was the first game Jamar Chase got his shit together and started to look like Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow. Our game, when he cooked us. That was week 3. We don't have the luxury of waiting. It's the Giants week 1, and you sit here with your shit. Y'all sit here with your shit thinking, oh, yeah, we finna run the Giants. We gonna beat them by multiple scores. That defense is playing football. You go out there with some lackluster bullshit-ass offense and think that the Giants won't come in here with that pass rush, devour this offensive line, and make shit live in hell for Jaden Daniels if you want to. Think it's a game. The next week, we on the road at Green Bay. We ain't got time to be coming out the gate slow. That first 4 weeks, that's supposed to be us starting fast because the schedule's going to get tougher after that. Mess around if you want to with a Raiders team that's looking around and saying everybody's counting us out. We're going to show y'all better than we can tell y'all. F around if you want to. And drop 1 or 2 of them games you ain't got no business dropping at the beginning of the season. Think Atlanta ain't got revenge on them. They ain't beat us in 4 years. You think the Falcons ain't dying to beat us? Y'all got another thing coming. Yeah, Joe Burrow had an all-time QB season. He also missed the playoffs and started 0-3 last year. I'd like to think that that had a lot to do with the fact that Jamar Chase didn't practice until 3 days before week 1 for the first time all summer. That's just me, though, Lang Hughes. I could be wrong. And they've struggled in the past to start seasons. I think that had a huge part to do with the struggles of last year, for sure. So, Commander Hove. Thank you for being a member for 21 months. Who writes, do you think we address wide receiver early in next year's draft? Yeah, I do. I mean, how early? I don't know, because it's too early to start making declarations about next year's draft, because another need could crop up during the course of this season. Like, we still need an edge rusher. Like, that need didn't just go away because we signed Von Miller. Von Miller is a rental. We still need an edge rusher. So keep in mind, we don't have a 2nd-round pick next year. I believe it's a 2nd-round pick that we gave up for Laramie Tunsil. I think it was a 3 last year and a 2 this year, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong, and I'm pretty sure it was a 3 last year and a 2 this year. So we don't have a 2nd-round pick. So how early you talking? Because the need to get an edge rusher may supersede the need to. And again, we sit here and talk about needs. Is what's the best player available at the time of your selection? It may be a receiver. It may be a edge rusher. It might be a corner. Maybe Marshawn Lattimore stinks it up this year, and we're out of the Marshawn Lattimore business. And they say, man, we see another young corner. We're gonna go get him, right, in the 1st round. Who knows? We don't know what the season brings and what we see as needs, in the draft next year. But as of right now, we just going off of where we are now. I'd say your 2 biggest needs right now are edge rusher and wide receiver. So, and that's just looking at the roster. This has nothing to do with what we're going through right now. I mean, assuming that Terry and Noah Brown were out there right now, we weren't having these wide receiver discussions, you're still looking at a situation where Debo's on a 1-year deal. He's your 2nd best receiver. Von Miller is on a 1-year deal. He's your best pure pass rusher right now. Those guys aren't potentially going to be here next year. So, I mean, that's why I look at those positions as ones that, I mean, Jordan McGee, what if he can't stay healthy this year? What if this is it for Bobby Wagner and you're like, we got to do something at middle linebacker? That could become a priority, right? You don't know. Jordan McGee is supposed to be the successor. He's supposed to be the guy that they've been grooming to take over this spot. He didn't stay healthy, so he didn't get the on-field training that he was supposed to get last year. This year, they're hoping he stays healthy and he can get that training while contributing to the team. Got to stay healthy in order to do that. So it's hard to say. It's hard to say. But not having a 2nd-round pick sucks, because I think that that puts you in a different headspace as to what you do. It's the same thing that not having a 3rd rounder this past draft did, because it puts you in a situation where he's like, hey, we got to get what we need in the first 2 rounds, because you don't have a 3rd round pick. You don't pick again to the 4th round. And I think that's what this does. You better get what you need in the 1st round, because everything you might be looking for, all the stuff you might be enamored with, might be gone by the time you roll around in the 3rd round. If we have it our way, we'll be picking dead last in every round. That's what we want to be. But, I hope we're picking. I expect to be picking somewhere towards the end of the draft, like we were this year. So, we'll see. But in any event, that was the last comment. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Command Post Training Camp Confidential. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow. No practice for the Commanders, but the Commanders Kings will be in full effect tomorrow. Speaking of which, Commanders Kings live August 24th, day after the final preseason game versus the Baltimore Ravens. We will be live August 24th, which is a Sunday, at Crystal City Sports Pub in Arlington, Virginia. It's going to be a great event. Looking forward to meeting all of you that want to be in attendance. We have less than 30 tickets remaining. The tickets have been selling. I'm so excited. Shout out to everyone who has already purchased tickets. And I'm talking to those of you who want to come. You're on the fence. You don't know. Come on out. Come on out. There's still time. I'd hate for you to be watching this thing on YouTube saying to yourself, damn, I should have went. Because it's going to be lit. It's going to be a time. It's one of those situations where we're going to be talking about this event 6 months from now, a year from now, 2 years from now. Don't watch it on YouTube when you can actually be there. Tickets still remain, but not a lot. Shout out to everybody that's already got their tickets. Looking forward to chopping it up with all of y'all, having a great time with y'all, toasting to the season with y'all, talking with y'all about the 53-man roster, about the upcoming season, etc., etc. It's going to be a great time. $45 are the tickets. Show starts at 5, or the doors open at 5. Show starts right before 6. We're going to have a time, and we want you to be a part of it. Be in the building. Link is in the description of this video. Mods, if you will, and I know you've already probably done this, do me a favor, drop the link in there yet again. Really appreciate you. So, with that said, I am going to glide to the side and allow you to enjoy the rest of your evening. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys tomorrow with the Kings. Thursday, we're going to be back here live on Thursday night. That should be a fun show. Looking forward to it. I'm going to have Candy Waller with me on Thursday night live. So you should be here. Should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to chopping it up with her. She's got some things she wants to get off her chest, so that should be fun. So this is going to be a really interesting close to the week. So make sure you're in the building tomorrow night for the Commanders Kings, Thursday night here on the Louie T Network. All right. Rocky D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy Rocky D writes, when are the Super Friends? I think it's going to be next week. We've been trying to get on each other's schedules. It's been a little tough getting everybody's schedules aligned. Law was out at the Cowboys camp out in Oxnard. LB went on a little quick vacay. You know how it is. It's the summertime. Everybody doing their thing. You know what I mean? Nobody's tripping. But the season is approaching. So, you know, the Super Friends are about to link up and we about to do what we do best. So it's coming right around the corner. You just got to hang in there. So I think it's going to be next week. If I'm not mistaken, next Tuesday. Don't hold me to that. That's a tentative date right now, but it should be next Tuesday, August the 19th, if everything goes according to plan. So we'll see. I'll keep you abreast of it. Chauncey Davis, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. OG, triple OG, my guy Chauncey writes, Lou, management screwed this Terry thing up, period. Look, I don't want to play the choosing sides game. I understand where they're coming from. I understand where Terry's coming from. Both sides have a gripe. I understand, you know, the situation, but I tend to agree with you that, all right, I understand where you're coming from, management. I understand the standard you're trying to set, the president that you're trying to uphold and establish, right? Like, you don't want to set a new one in that this is what we do with guys you know, no, irregardless of age, you know, irregardless of what we expect in the future from you. If you've done it here for a long time, we're going to pay you based off of what you did in the past, not what you're going to give us in the future. I get that you don't want to set that type of precedence, right? At the same time, I've said this, and this is the problem. This is where I struggle. Who here thinks that Terry, based off of his skill set, is going production-wise is going to fall off of a cliff? That's the thing I struggle with. Is they're treating Terry like statistically he's not going to do what he's done. Statistically, he can't continue to play at this level for the next 3 years. They're acting as if Terry's game won't age well. He's already the best contested catch wide receiver in the NFL. That's not going to change over the next 3 years. He still can run, and that's not going to change all that much over the next 2 or 3 years. So that's what I struggle with. Is like, you're treating Terry like you treat every other receiver that is 30 years old or about to turn 30 years old. And not every case is the same. You treat every case on a case-by-case basis, and they're just lumping him in with all of the receivers that have come and gone through this league and hit the age of 30. And I think it's a bit unfair to Terry. It's frustrating. I get it from his perspective. I get it from theirs. I tend to agree with you, OG. I think initially they did what they thought was right. Totally get it. Now you got to be able to say, you know what? How can we come to some sort of compromise? How can we find some sort of middle ground? How can we make this situation tenable for all parties involved so we can get you where you belong, which is back on the field? I would be able to fully commit to what you just said, which is management screwed this Terry thing up, period, if we get to week 1 and this hasn't been resolved. Then they've totally screwed this whole thing up, period. So, anyway, I digress. You guys have a good one. Take care. I'll see you guys next time. God bless. Good night.